morning, everybody. My name is Yusuf Kaka, as Helen has mentioned, and I'm from MTN Group. I joined MTN 12 years ago, 12 and a half years ago, MTN South Africa to be more specific. I come from a research background before that. I was doing research into wireless mesh technologies before that, looking at wireless mesh over Wi-Fi, to be more precise, for a government research organization in South Africa, CSIR. And the whole idea back then at the CSIR was to investigate whether we could impact people's lives in South Africa. We had a very tough challenge in our hands in the early 2000s and late 90s, where fixed line penetration was really poor in South Africa. At best 10%, and if you looked at the majority of the population that lived outside of urban areas, that was as low as 2%. So we were looking at creative ways of bringing technology in to solve the problem. And it was during one of these moments of truth at the CSR that I decided to join the telecoms world. We had implemented wireless mesh networking on Wi-Fi, and we were going to this rural village in the north of South Africa called Mpumalanga. Took a flight there. It was a 4-seater plane flight, a 2-hour drive after that to get into this village to go and set up a Wi-Fi mesh network. And as we pulled into the village, as I looked up, I see this tower being erected. And in front of the tower is a van, and on the side of the van was an MTN logo. And I'm thinking to myself, we're going to be coming in here, setting up maybe a Wi-Fi network around the library and connecting up, maybe 10, 15 people at max. But this tower that's being erected here is probably going to cover this entire village and give everyone access in one go. And that got me thinking about the impact that a company like MTN can have versus what I was doing. Not to say that deep research doesn't have impact. It probably does have a much greater impact. It just takes a lot longer to get there. And I was keen on seeing the effects of technology firsthand, if I could. So that's why I joined MTN. I've got 4 topics that I want to go through. A little bit about MTN and how it's evolved to where it is. What I currently do at MTN or MTN Group, innovation strategy. I'll touch on TADHack and why we got involved and why we continue to do so. And then a little bit on telco hacking to end things off. If my iPad plays along. Oh, there we go. There we go. So I've broken up the history of MTN into 4 stages. I read this really interesting paper from London Business School that stated that large companies go through roughly 4 stages. The first one is, where they the maverick founder, and MTN is essentially a 24-year-old startup company, really. The next one is where these companies go global and start impacting broader than just the country they originated in. The third one is where the services they provide start becoming commoditized, and there's more competition in the market, and they have to start fending off this competition. And the fourth one, which I slightly adapted, is where some of these start failing, and they don't know why, and rather than jumping onto the next S-curve, they start distracting the audience. They start, focusing on making shareholders happy rather than addressing another challenge. And what we're trying to do as innovation strategy is change the narrative of the fourth one for MTN. We want to avoid, this phase where we become trying to distract our shareholders, but rather start preparing for the next S-curve. So that is MTN's current footprint in Africa and the Middle East. We operate in 24 countries. We've got licenses in about 20 countries as a mobile operator. The remaining ones are where we do B2B type business. That's our growth in terms of subscriber numbers over the last 24 years. We went from 40,000 users in 1994 to just under 230 million. The dip at the end is because we sold our Cyprus operation earlier this year. So the first period, 1994 to 2000, is really when MTN was a startup company and accelerating into growth because of GSM technology. I think GSM technology is for me one of the examples of an exponential technology that made a huge impact. 1994 also coincides when South Africa became, a more democratic country where we got rid of apartheid and, started recognizing everybody as an equal citizen. To really take ideas all the way from ideation to scaling. So you'll see our model is basically a partnership model. It's all about collaborating with an ecosystem and in certain cases investing. I'll go into a little bit of detail into some of the cases at the bottom there. Why we want to do this, we really want to remain relevant to our customers. We don't want to be one of those operators that disappears in a few years' time. We want to adapt to the world that's changing around us. And the only way to do that is with an ecosystem around us. Some of the ways we're going to do this is by doing some certain tangible things that will set this thing going, and the other are more softer things that we need to get going as well. So on the hard physical things that we need to do, we've decided on setting up things like an early stage fund, deepening our collaboration with startup companies through incubators, and internally at MTN also trying to stimulate people with innovation by coming up with an innovation fund and a mechanism for people to execute ideas. On the softer side, it's all about getting buy-in and getting executive, ideally CEOs, to be behind everything that we do, and also making sure that there's KPIs and reward and recognition for people that are involved in innovation. Some of the actual activities that are going on in the same three pillars of ideation, going to market, and scaling. And you'll see TADHack is in there in the mix somewhere, in between ideation and going to market. There's a bit of a split between what we do internally and externally. There's a lot on there. I'll go into a few of them. The HackerSpace is something that was built in 2012. It reminds me of the presentation before this by Imra. I mean, we've went through exactly the same story. The HackerSpace was built as an internal incubation space for ideas. A team was hired to take ideas, through some exploratory phase and to take things to market independent of the company. This also, in my opinion, was a huge success back in the day. One of the example of the project that I deemed to be a success was where we decided not to do RCS. It was in this lab that we made the decision. After implementing an open source version of RCS and building an equivalent one using completely open source tools like Asterisk and XMPP, we were able to show that it's just not worth the effort and the cost of implementing RCS. But like the Imra story, this was closed down in end of 2014. We kept all the learnings, and basically 3 years later, we're giving it another go. This time with a slightly different model. Rather than hiring a permanent team in there, we've actually got a constant flow of people in and out of there on 4-month shorter projects where we build prototypes. we do things with a learning focus. So the whole idea is to for the organization to grow and learn. We explore topics like AI and blockchain. So at this point in time, there's 2 teams of people in there, a mix of graduates and software developers, engineers, marketing people. One team, for example, is working on rebuilding our loyalty program on blockchain. It's going to be a 4-month project. The hypothesis is that our current loyalty program is not doing too well because it doesn't offer many opportunities for redeeming points after a user has earned them. And the thinking is that blockchain will help us create this broader network of players in the loyalty space. It's just a theory. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, we would have learned about blockchain and several other technologies in the process. The other project that we're working on in the space at the same time is a project where we're taking USSD services. So USSD is really big in Africa. It's probably the primary channel at this point in time for most services, banking, everything. So we're looking at how do we take USSD services and map them into AI bots. So we're building this little platform in between that will translate a USSD menu into a bot on WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever. So those are the 2 projects that are running in there currently. We've also got a startup incubator in Cape Town. This is in collaboration with the University of Cape Town, where we run a program called the Venture Incubation Program. It's a 3-month program where we take 10 startups through essentially what is a design thinking based program. Everything from making it desirable to making it feasible and making it viable. This is the same approach we use in the hackerspace also, by the way. So I really appreciate the talk yesterday on design thinking. We're trying our best to use the same approach internally as well. MTN also has direct investments in startups, late stage startups at this point in time. We've invested more than $500 million in total. Some of those in investment houses like Amadeus, others directly with startup companies like TravelStart, Jumia, which is Africa's Amazon, Aya, which is an insurance company, Snap is a ride-hailing company in Iran. So we do invest directly in startups as well. And what we're trying to do from an innovation strategy point of view is see how best we can leverage off these investments, how we can bring these closer to the business. We're also trying to tie all these initiatives into one storyline. So, taking things like, for example, TADHack, how do we take the winners out of TADHack and feed them into, for example, the incubator in Cape Town? And from the incubator in Cape Town, the most successful ones, how do we get them into our, early stage fund? And those that make it out of there, how do we get them funded by Amadeus? So we're trying to neatly tie all of these things into a path all the way from idea to scaling. So I'm going to run through the TADHack slides a little bit quicker. 2016 was awesome. We didn't know what to expect. It was the first time we ran a hackathon at MTN, and thanks to Alan, it was, in my opinion, a success. We had 60 developers, 8 sponsors, 10 hacks, and we managed to stream everything in and out live. 2018, we took it to another level, 175 hackers this time. I think we were the largest location. Our youngest participant was 14 years old. Our eldest was older than 50. We specifically this time had a staff category. We wanted staff to participate. There was some of the feedback we got from 2016 and some of the learnings. What we did differently for staff is we had a designathon a month before the hackathon. So we took staff to a call center, an MTN call center, and we had somebody from IDEO come through and do an design thinking facilitation process where staff listened in on customer complaints, we put them directly into the lines where people wanted to port out of MTN. So the real edge case angry users, and they got to empathize with the users and feel their pain. And then they got to go and do the ideation based on that. So a month before, this is what happened. The 30 staff members that participated in the designathon then went onto the hackathon with the ideas and hacked the ideas through. And 3 of those projects are going to be implemented as POCs in the next couple of months. Yeah, there's lots of other stats in there. I'm not going to go through all of those. Last few slides on telco hacking and on what we're currently doing in MTN. So in preparation for the next 2 S-curves, we've built a telco. We're doing quite well in there. There's still some growth to be had in the African market, especially when it comes to data. Our data penetration rate is only 1/3 of the market, so we've still got a couple of years of growth. But we also aim to be the largest bank in Africa. We've got 30 million customers on mobile money, and we announced yesterday that we're going to be launching mobile money in South Africa and Nigeria. So initially, we solved the problem of access to communication services for our markets. The next thing that we aim to tackle is financial exclusion and through mobile money. And once people have connectivity and they can pay for services, I think we have a really good platform to tackle the next problem, which is unemployment in Africa, by creating lots and lots of businesses and partnering with lots and lots of businesses on top of our platform. We are also, from a technical point of view, preparing our platforms for this, and this is where the programmable telecoms comes in really. We're going from monolithic systems where possible to microservices. So as we see a business requirement to change something, instead of buying a new platform, we actually using something called the strangler approach, where we're taking the existing monolith, breaking off the pieces that we think need to be changed, and rebuilding those as microservices. So the old way with the big monolithic systems is going to be replaced by, thinner layers, microservices, APIs in between, and hopefully this, if we expose these services as APIs to ourselves, these become useful to the broader ecosystem as well. Before I close, I just wanted to mention Erlang. I thought I'd be the first one to have a slide on Erlang, but I saw it earlier today on somebody's slide as well. A lot of what we built over the years at MTN was done on Erlang, and it's one of those decisions that just keeps on giving. We built our own SMSC, we built our own voucher management system, we built our own USSD gateway, locations, you name it, we've built it all in Erlang. And looking back, one of the reasons that Erlang has been such a blessing for us is that it's essentially a microservice-based architecture. It allows us to scale out certain portions of the code independently and as broadly as we want, and it served us really well. So while we are building microservices the new way with Java and Node.js and all these kind of things, we still think that there's still a lot we can do with Erlang. We can essentially skip microservices and go straight to nanoservices and function as a service if we were to stick onto Erlang. So that's all I have, and open up to any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Yusuf.